What if the system you were taught to trust, banks, jobs, credit, was never designed to make you free? What if every step of your financial life, from your first paycheck to your last retirement plan, was engineered to benefit someone else more than you? This isn't about your personal failure, it's about the system's design. From ancient debt slavery to modern interest rates, from gold-backed coins to digital credits, the game has evolved. But the rules? They've always served the same masters. Today, we're going to trace the hidden rules of wealth, the structures of control, and the illusions sold to billions. And by the end, you'll understand not only why most people stay trapped, but how you can escape. It all started long before any of us were born. In Mesopotamia, the first known civilization, money wasn't even metal, it was grain. Temple priests kept records of who owed what, and if you couldn't repay your loan, you could lose your land, your family, even your freedom. Debt wasn't just a financial matter. It was a spiritual one. Fast forward to ancient Rome, taxes and currency were used to build roads, fund armies, and expand an empire. And what happened to those who couldn't pay? They were enslaved. Finance wasn't about fairness, it was about extraction. Centuries later, medieval Europe introduced gold and silver as common currency, but the church officially banned usury, the charging of interest. Of course, that didn't stop powerful families from lending under different names. The Medici, the Fuggers, the Rothschilds, they didn't just make money, they shaped kings and empires. Their real asset wasn't just gold, it was access to war, to power, and to a monopoly over the rules. Then, in 1694, something world-changing happened. The Bank of England was founded. It wasn't created to help citizens save or borrow. It was created to allow the monarchy to fund wars through bonds and interest. And how were those loans repaid? Through the taxes of ordinary people? For the first time, a government was formally tied to a central bank. The economy was no longer just local, it was engineered. The 1800s saw the rise of empires and colonization. Nations borrowed heavily from European banks to build railroads, buy weapons, and fund revolts. Interest piled up, and debt repayments lasted for generations. Some countries are still paying those debts today. This is how debt became a tool of global control. Banks didn't just lend to governments, they governed them. Now let's enter the 20th century. Factories, electricity, and global trade made people believe they were getting richer. And in some ways, they were. But behind every paycheck was a tax, behind every loan was interest, and behind every investment there was risk. But that risk wasn't the same for everyone. The rich owned the board. Everyone else was just playing on it. Then came the Great Depression. Wall Street crashed, jobs vanished, banks collapsed. And what did the system do? It changed the rules. The US left the gold standard. Central banks got stronger. Governments began printing money. And with that, inflation was born slowly, quietly, eating away at your savings without you even noticing. In 1971, another major shift occurred. The US completely abandoned the gold standard. From that moment on, money had no physical anchor. It was backed by nothing but faith in a system run by those who benefit from it the most. Money could now be created out of thin air, and it was by governments, by banks, and eventually by you, through credit. The illusion of ownership spread like wildfire. Buy a house, own a car, get a degree, but most of that ownership came with a leash, debt. A 30-year mortgage, a 10-year student loan, a revolving credit line. You didn't really own things, you financed them. And financing means paying far more than the item ever cost. Over time, you pay for the house twice over, the car 3 times, and the education, it seems, forever. Then came 2008. The banks pushed too far. Subprime mortgage, shady investments, and pure corporate greed collided. The system imploded. But once again, the rules kicked in to protect the powerful. The very people who caused the crash were rescued with trillions in bailouts. Meanwhile, the average person lost their home, their job, their retirement fund. The system didn't fail. It succeeded for those it was built to protect. Since 2008, things haven't improved, they've intensified. Central banks have printed unprecedented amounts of money. Asset prices, stocks, real estate, even collectibles have skyrocketed. If you owned assets, you got richer. If you didn't, you got left behind. Wages stagnated while debt grew. The wealth gap became a chasm. Today, most people live paycheck to paycheck. Even six-figure earners are drowning in expenses. Rent, childcare, healthcare, taxes, it never ends. Yet the billionaires? They often pay lower tax rates than teachers. They shelter their income offshore, they borrow against assets they never sell. Why? Because they know the rules, and those rules are hidden in plain sight? There are no coincidences. Every policy, every bailout, every tax code, it all favors capital over labor, ownership over effort, connections over merit. You were taught to trade your time for money. But wealth isn't about time, it's about leverage. And if you're not leveraging assets, your time becomes their profit. So what are the actual hidden rules? 1. The system rewards borrowing, but only if you're rich. A billionaire can borrow millions at near zero interest to invest and grow wealthier. You borrow a few thousand on a credit card and you're crushed under 20% APR. 2. Education is marketed as the ladder to success, but often it's a trap. Student debt is now a $1.7 trillion crisis, and most graduates aren't financially free. They're financially delayed. 3. Crashes aren't bugs. They're features of the system. Every market crash is a massive transfer of wealth. The poor panic and sell their assets, while the rich buy everything at a discount. Then the system recovers and the gap widens even more. 4. Inflation is silent theft. It slowly eats away at your purchasing power while your wages barely move. What cost $10 last year might cost $12 this year, but did your salary rise by 20%? I doubt it. 5. Retirement is becoming a mirage. Pensions are vanishing, Social Security is strained, and most people will work far past the age they dreamed of stopping, because the system can't afford to let you rest. And now, we're entering the age of automation. AI, robotics, and machine learning will replace millions of jobs. White collar, blue collar, no one is truly safe. And the answer from those in power? Learn to code? Start a side hustle, be your own brand. But that's not empowerment. That's desperation rebranded as independence. So, what can you actually do? First, understand that wealth is not income, it's assets. It's ownership. If you earn $100,000 a year but own nothing, you're still playing defense. If you own something that earns money while you sleep, you're playing offense. Second, minimize debt that doesn't build wealth. A mortgage on a home you live in can be an asset. A credit card balance from buying things you don't need is a liability. Know the difference. Third, learn skills that compound over time: writing, coding, investing, negotiation. These are tools that multiply your efforts. Fourth, start thinking like an owner. Don't just consume content, create it. Don't just rent everything, start owning something, even if it's small. And fifth, talk about money. Educate your family, teach your children. Break the silence, because silence is what keeps this system strong. This isn't about spreading fear, it's about gaining clarity. The more you understand the game, the less power it has over you. Yes, the system is unfair. Yes, it feels rigged, but no, you don't have to lose. You can't opt out entirely, but you can opt in strategically. Learn the rules, play differently, build your own table instead of begging for a seat at theirs. If this message struck a chord with you, share it. Talk about it with someone. Like this video so more people can wake up to this reality. And subscribe for deeper dives into financial history and economic truth. Finally, comment below, what part of the game do you think most people never notice? Because once you see the board, once you understand the rules, you don't have to play blind anymore. You can play with purpose, and purpose, that is the first step to freedom.